This podcast does not provide medical nor legal advice. Please listen to the complete disclosure at the end of the recording.
Hello, and welcome to Everyone Dies, the podcast where we talk about serious illness, dying, death, and bereavement. I'm Marianne Matzo, a nurse practitioner, and I use my experience from working as a nurse for 45 years to help answer your questions about what happens at the end of life.
And I'm Charlie Navarrete, an actor in New York City, reminding you to have both a regular will and a living will. Plan ahead, because prepared allows you to make sound decisions in a crisis.
So, please relax and get yourself something to eat and drink, and maybe an adult beverage, because today's topic might make you a bit anxious. And thank you for spending the next hour with Charlie and me as we talk about managing the stuff we've acquired over a lifetime. In the first half, Charlie reads a blog about a daughter helping her mother to downsize her house, and I have our recipe of the week. In the second half, we will explore what we believe to be a legacy that we're leaving to our children, but what our children see as junk, and what to do about it. And in our third half, Charlie presents the George Carlin monologue about stuff. So in keeping with our theme, our recipe of the week is dump cake, because that may be where you send some of your stuff. Since you'll be so inspired to start cleaning out your things, you'll need an easy dessert to take to your next funeral lunch. Dump cakes get their name from the method in which they are made. You simply dump the ingredients into a baking pan and bake. A dump cake has a crumbly texture of a cobbler mixed with the buttery goodness of a cake. And for the most part, you only need a baking dish, a can opener, and a couple of spoons to make this recipe. The instructions at their basic level contain 3 ingredients: a can of fruit or pie filling, a box of cake mix, and butter. The outcome is a decadent and cakey dessert. So, Charlie, we're talking about cleaning out stuff. And I know that with the last couple of years, both your parents have died. So were you involved in the cleaning out of their house?
Yes. It was interesting. So the 4 of us, with my siblings, when so with my sister and I. What was interesting is, my sister and I are the oldest. So, we went through everything, but we would stop and like, oh, do you remember this when we were little kids? And, oh my God, I thought Mom had thrown this away. And then, we would go out, and then my brothers would come in, and it's like junk. Okay, this bag's full. We need another bag. It was really, it's like you just wanted to pinch them. But it was fine. We cleaned everything out. We all knew, stuff had to go. But it was nice. There were a few things we just remembered, back from our childhood. My mother was really not one to keep things and hoard things. But there were a couple things she just, for whatever reason, did not throw out. I think the reason was everything was in the basement and, well, just forgotten about. But then my sister rediscovered them. But the 4 of us pitched in. It was really, the issue was, this is our deadline. Everything needs to be out by then. That was it. Well, let's take a lookie, shall we? When my mom was cleaning out her house over 23 years ago to sell it, I wasn't very sympathetic over her attachment to things. I would go over at weekends to help her, and we would go through things for a yard sale, things to donate, things to throw away. I would usually get upset over how long it took her to decide. For instance, we were going through kitchen cabinets, and she spent 20 minutes looking at an iron kettle with a lid. Finally, I said, Mom, at this rate, it is going to take us another 2 years. She told me that her mother used to make meals in that kettle and leave them at doorsteps of neighbors during the Depression. Mom would deliver them, and then they would reappear back to her house with an apron or a wood carving, something in return for the meal. I realized that everything that my mom was going through was really a reliving of her life. If you are reading this and are under the age of 60, you won't get it. You haven't lived long enough. Most of you had not had to move your parents into a nursing home or empty their home. You haven't lived long enough to realize that the hours you spent picking out the right cabinets or the perfect tile will not be what matters in the later years. It will be the handmade toothbrush holder or a picture that you got on vacation. So if your parents are downsizing and moving to smaller places or selling a home, give your mom and even your dad a break. Those things that you don't understand why they can't just pitch and why you think you know what needs to be tossed or saved, give them a little time to make their decisions. They are saying goodbye to their past and realizing that they are getting ready for their end of life while you are beginning your life. Now I am going through my things, and it's amazing just how hard it is to get rid of objects. But life goes on, and you realize they are just things. But sometimes things comfort us. So give your parents or grandparents a break. Listen to their stories, because in 40 years, when you are going through those boxes and the memories come back, it will be hard to get rid of those plastic champagne flutes that you and your late husband used at a New Year's Eve party 40 years ago. You don't just have a clue until it happens to you, and then you'll remember how you rushed them. And it will make you sad, especially if they have already died and you can't say, I'm sorry, I didn't get it. It is true. And again, that really did not happen with us, but I have heard it from so many friends. Yeah, it's happened to them. So, alrighty. So, folks, please go to our webpage for the recipe for dump cake and additional resources for this program. Your tax-deductible donations are always welcome so that we can continue to offer you quality programming. Thank you in advance for making your donation at www.everyonedies.org. That's every, the number one, dies.org. Marianne, what do you got next?
Thanks, Charlie. There are times in our life when cleaning up our homes typically occurs. When we're at the end of a pregnancy, we go through what's called a nesting period, a time to focus on the home and family and prepare for the baby's imminent arrival. There's spring cleaning, when we clean up the debris of the winter and prepare for the rebirth that accompanies spring. But what I'd like to propose is that we adopt another phase of cleaning called fall cleaning.
Fall cleaning, I like that. Okay.
A time in our early 60s when we focus on all the stuff we have accumulated in our lives and make decisions about where it's all going to go. We initially keep our stuff in our homes where we can see it and enjoy the memories that it invokes. But as we get more stuff, we move the visible stuff to closets and drawers where we can see it if we want to. Then, as we get more stuff, we move that stuff to the garage, knowing full well that none of it is ever returning to the house. And when the garage gets too full, we may rent a personal storage unit so that we can defer making any decisions about all the stuff we have.
Gee, that sounds familiar.
And I have so many friends with, these personal storage units because their parents died, their aunts and uncles died, all these, different people died. And they don't really know what to do with it. They don't want to give it away. They don't want to throw it away. And so they defer the decision by getting a personal storage unit to just store the stuff. And so they store that stuff, but at what point are they going to deal with it? And likely it's never. And then the next generation has to deal with it after we die. At some point along this road, the older generation in our families die, and we take their stuff and we begin to do this process all over again, or just put it in the storage unit until we do have the time to deal with it, which in all honesty is never. Then what happens? We either need to move to a smaller home or in with our kids or to an extended care facility, or we die. If we're alive and moving, we must go through all our stuff ourselves and decide what to keep, what our kids want, what to donate, or what to throw out. Having gone through this process after the death of my mother and helping my then fiance through prepping his house to sell and dealing with his deceased wife's things and downsizing myself, I have way too much experience dealing with stuff. So I'm going to share it with you. When my mom died, my brother really didn't want anything. The grandkids didn't want anything. My sister and I took some stuff, and the rest went in the yard for a garage sale. I wasn't sure what she had been saving some of the stuff for, but it certainly wasn't for all of us. And in fact, she had a teacup collection, and we said to each of the grandkids, you have to, you have to take a teacup to remember Grandma by. And she had all these precious moments statues that she had written on the bottom who gave it to her and the date. And my sister decreed that whoever gave it to her had to take it back. And I said, I've given them to her, but I'm not taking those back. And so if the grandkids wanted any of them, they could have them. But if not, again, they went into the garage sale. Now, when I was downsizing, I had to go through all the stuff that I and my daughters had accumulated. We had moved into that house when my youngest was in second grade, so we had this archaeological dig of childhood. I had them clean out their own closets, and it took them hours because we looked at all the treasures of our lives and things from sports and friends and a lot of reminiscing. And it was good to go through, but it took a long time, and actually it was very exhausting. When you're looking through those years together, it can be gratifying and necessary. We donated a lot of things, and I learned that many of the keepsakes from my family or gifts given to them along the way, my kids really just didn't want. That was hard for me to let it go, but I knew I needed to as part of the process. From this and talking to friends going through the same thing, I learned that kids don't usually want the stuff that their parents or grandparents have been collecting. Now, as for my fiance, he and his family traveled all over the world during his 35-plus Air Force career. His wife had died unexpectedly 2 years previous, and there was a lot of stuff. Despite him telling me that he had moved 17 times in his career and that he was an old hand at moving, I knew that this move would be different in every possible way. I took the job of packing the kitchen so that he could deal with all the other things that are of a more emotional nature. The first 2 weeks of packing, he walked around the house, opened the fridge, munched on some cheese, walked around some more, and I just sat there packing up dishes and glassware, and I thought, this is never going to get done. Fortunately, we had bought a big enough house so that all the stuff could be moved without having to make any decisions about disposition. One thing we started doing together was to go to estate sales every week. Now, mostly I'm curious just about how people live, what the houses look like on the inside, and really, honestly, what kind of stuff they have. I'm fascinated by these houses crammed with stuff that the kids don't want after their parents' death. These sales look like someone ran to the grocery store and everything is just as they left it, meaning it doesn't look like the kids or grandkids took anything. Sometimes the good jewelry, but even then I've seen that for sale. So I'm putting some pictures with the show notes so that you can see what I'm talking about. It's incredible how much stuff people have. So from my vast relocation experience, I have some suggestions for you. First, really think about how many ceramic frogs you need. Now, check out the pictures in the show notes because there was one estate sale where this woman collected, I'm assuming it was a woman, ceramic frogs. How many mugs do you need? I know they gave you pleasure to receive them, that probably gave the person who gave them to you some pleasure. But as you start your fall cleaning, choose your favorite one, or at most 2, and then give the rest away. Give one to each grandchild and tell them about who gave it to you and why frogs were your thing. Tip people with frogs. Give one to your hairdresser, a favorite cashier. Take a box to a nursing home. If you love your family, downsize your collections. Second, crafters. If you have not made a quilt with the first 2 shelves of fabric you bought, you're not going to make one with another 6 shelves of fabric. Someone like me will come along and get a pile of your half-yard pieces of fabric, and I'm going to make dog scarves out of them. I'll get them for 10 cents a piece, and my dogs will have a new scarf every week. I'm not going to make a quilt, but I can cut out a dog scarf. Now, if you have embroidery or craft kits that have dates on them from the 1970s and you have not completed them, do not buy more. The human lifespan is not long enough to catch up. I've walked into more than one woman's craft room and had to walk out because it was absolutely overwhelming. Same thing happened after my older sister died. She was an incredible crafter, sewer. And after she died, I walked up into her room that she had, a huge room actually, just for her crafting and fabrics and all of that. And I just looked around and I turned around and walked out. It was like, I don't know what anybody's going to do to go through all of this. And I'll tell you, it was many, many years and a yard sale that got rid of all of that stuff. And she, I'm sure, wants to haunt everybody who was involved in that. But honestly, that's really just too much pressure for anybody. So I don't know what number I'm on, but my rule for books: read it and pass it on to someone with similar tastes or donate them. Do not buy bookshelves in order to keep them. I've been to, I can't tell you how many different estate sales where there's rooms with bookshelves and every wall is crammed with books. Your kids don't want them. Read them and donate. I went to one where there was this whole room of bookshelves with books, and they were all like fantasy books. And the people, it was just comical to kind of be looking through the shelves and hearing the comments of people coming in, because people come in and say, well, if you like fantasy, this would be the place to be. But not everybody's into fantasy, let alone a whole room of fantasy. I mean, there must be a place that all that stuff could have been donated to, which I'm positive that all of it didn't sell and it ended up at Goodwill or someplace else. The next rule is about buying in bulk. Now, in my opinion, buying in bulk is for young people with kids. As older people, we can't use that much. I mean, fill in the blank, whatever it is, we can't use that much. I know even for my husband and I now, it's like we don't eat that much. I mean, maybe we once did, but, you know, it would take us forever to go through a case of anything. So buying in bulk really, in my opinion, is for young people with kids. As older people, we don't use that much. I mean, whatever it is, fill in the blank. I mean, toilet paper maybe, but I mean, what are you going to do with a case of, I don't know, mushrooms or whatever? You know, I know that my husband and I, we don't really eat that much anymore. You know, we'll have like one main meal a day. You don't need to have all those fully stocked shelves and closets of cleaning supplies that is, you know, enough to be used in a couple of lifetimes. We really need one of each kind of cleaning product. Keep them organized so that you don't buy multiples because you can't find something. From that, I speak for experience. You know, I'll look for something and say, oh, we must not have this. And then I buy whatever. And the next time, you know, and I go to put it away and it's like, oh, it was right there all along. So keep things organized. At our age, we have probably figured out just about how much cleaning we're ever going to do, and that's it. So just be prudent. I went to one yard sale where the woman had filled her garage with clothing racks, and in looking through, it looked like a history tour of fashion. It was both incredible and overwhelming. And all of it, they were all like size 4 or 6. And in Oklahoma, I have to tell you, there's a minimum number of people of that teeny tiny size. So nobody was really buying the clothes, but everybody was looking at them. It was like, oh my God, remember we used to wear this or that. Why this woman was saving all of these clothes, I really don't know. I'll never find out. I'll go to my grave wondering. But they were all there. I have a friend who gives Everyone in her family only so many hangers, and when those are filled, they have to get rid of something. For me, it took 2 years after my retirement to finally go through my work suits and donate them. It's said if you haven't worn something in a year, get rid of it. But I say if it doesn't fit, it isn't going to, so donate it. I'm personally working toward that end, but it really is a work in progress. And honestly, I really rarely buy new things now. I buy a lot, not a lot, but stuff at estate sales and I call them, my dead women's clothes. And I've gotten some, pajama pants and that kind of things for my husband. And I'll say, oh, you're wearing your dead man's clothes. I don't think he really appreciates that characterization, but it is what it is. Now, when I was downsizing, I went through all my jewelry and got rid of most of my costume jewelry. And my costume jewelry was all vintage kind of stuff from the 40s, which I love to wear with my work suits. But, I wear t-shirts and shorts now, and that stuff would look weird. So I got rid of all my costume jewelry. And I regularly go through the jewelry with my girls to see what they would like. I give it to them now if they're going to appreciate it because they're working now, so they need to look way nicer than I do. And I also tell them, okay, this is what this cost. You better not sell my real stuff at a garage sale for $1 because I will haunt you forever for that. And I have a lot of credibility when it comes to carrying out what I say. And so I think the girls have they have enough fear of me that they will not do that. But, you just never know. Now, there's a practice called Swedish death cleaning. It's dödstakning, a combination of the word dö, which means death, and standing. It's about a permanent form of organization that makes your everyday life run more smoothly. Do it for your children and other families so they don't curse you for leaving behind a lot of junk they don't want to deal with. It is a favor for those that you leave behind.
Yes.
Let me point out that you don't have to be old or at the end of your life to declutter and adopt a minimalist lifestyle. The things we choose to have around us that give us pleasure when we see them are the things that we need. The rest of it are things to be dusted, assuming that you dust. Start your cleaning now. First, sort through clothing. Next, declutter items that occupy the most space. Lastly, clean out your digital files. Some people have a lot of stuff on their computers that they may not want their family to see. Clean it up yourself. I had a good friend of mine, my age, who dropped dead, and I mean that literally. And I went to her house to help her daughter, and her daughter had enough sense to say, do you mind going through my mom's computer and just see if everything in there is okay? And I said, yes, I will do that. And I thought, oh, that was so wise of her. I mean, and this was a few years back, because there were things in there that her daughter shouldn't have seen. There were things in there I didn't really want to see, but I did. And I got rid of them because sometimes we save things that are our personal business and it needs to stay that way. As Willie Nelson says, live every day like this is your last one, and one day you're going to be right. Don't you want to have your house decluttered before that happens? Do you want strangers pawing through your stuff at an estate sale because your kids didn't want any of the stuff you've been accumulating? Seriously, people's underwear and personal items are there for all to see. I'd rather clean than think about that happening. Charlie?
What? Wait, now? Oh, sorry. I was just trying to find a place to put my stuff. I don't know how you are, but I need a place for my stuff. Everybody's got a little place for their stuff. That's all your house is. Your house is just a place for your stuff. This is my stuff. That's your stuff. That'll be the stuff over there for him. If you don't have so much damn stuff, you wouldn't need a house. That's all your house is, a place to stuff with a cover on it. You can see that when you're taking off in an airplane. You look down, you see everybody's got a little pile of stuff with a roof on it. And when you leave your stuff, you got to lock it up. Wouldn't want somebody to come by and take some of your stuff. They always take the good stuff. They never bother with your 4th grade math test and all the other crap you're saving. All they want is the shiny stuff. That's what your house is, a place to keep your stuff while you go out and get more stuff. Sometimes you gotta move. Gotta get a bigger house. Why? Too much stuff. What about other people's stuff? You ever notice when you go to somebody else's house, you never quite feel 100% at home? You know why? Somebody else's stuff is all over the damn place. And what awful stuff it is. Where did they get this stuff? And if you stay overnight unexpectedly, they give you a little bedroom to sleep in, bedroom they haven't used in about 11 years since someone died in it. And they haven't moved any of his stuff. Right next to the bed, there's usually a dresser or a bureau of some kind, and there's no room for your stuff on it. Somebody else's shit is on the dresser. Have you noticed that their stuff is shit and your shit is stuff? Now, sometimes you go on vacation. You got to bring some of their stuff with you. Let's say you're going to fly all the way to Honolulu. Got to take about 2 big suitcases full of stuff, plus your carry-on stuff, plus the stuff in your pockets. You get all the way to Honolulu, then you start to put away your stuff. That's the thing you do in a hotel room is put away your stuff. I'm going to put some stuff in here. I'm going to put some stuff down there. Here's another place for stuff. Hey, here, you put your stuff over there. I'm putting my stuff here. Here's another place for stuff. We got more places than stuff. We're going to have to go out and buy more stuff. And even though you're far away from home, you start to get used to it. You start to feel okay because, after all, you do have some of your stuff with you. That's when your friend calls up from Maui and says, hey, why don't you come over to Maui for the weekend? Spend a couple of nights over here. Ah, shit, no. Now what stuff do you bring? Right. You got to bring an even smaller version of your stuff. Just enough stuff for the weekend on Maui. You're really spread out now. You got shit all over the world. You got stuff at home, stuff in Honolulu, stuff in Maui, stuff in your pockets. Supply lines are getting longer and harder to maintain. You get over to your friend's house and they give you a little place to sleep. There's a little window ledge or some small shelf, not much room now, but it's okay because you don't have much stuff now. And you put what stuff you do have, your Visine, your toenail clippers, your cinnamon dental floss, you know you're okay. And you relax on Maui on that basis. Then your friend says, hey, I think tonight we'll go over to the other side of the island, stay at my friend's house overnight. Ah, shit, no. Now what do you bring? Now you just bring the stuff you know you're gonna need. Money, keys, comb, wallet, lighter, hanky, pen, smokes, rubbers, whips, chains, dildos, and a book. What was it? Only the stuff you're gonna need? Please stay tuned for the continuing saga of Everyone Dies, and thank you for listening. Like the days of our lives, so is sand through an hourglass. This is Charlie Navarrete, and from comedian, writer, producer Amy Poehler, clean out your crap so other people don't have to when you die.
And I'm Marianne Matzo, and we'll see you next week. Remember, every day is a gift.
This podcast does not provide medical advice. All discussion on this podcast, such as treatments, dosages, outcomes, charts, patient profiles, advice, messages, and any other discussion are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your primary care practitioner or other qualified health providers with any questions that you may have regarding your health. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard from this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. Everyone Dies does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, practitioners, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in this podcast. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast by persons appearing on this podcast at the invitation of Everyone Dies or by other members is solely at your own risk.